Okay, it's Sunday and I'm on my own. I'm talking about Ireland, Fiji and Australia against Italy, or Italy, Australia. And lovely stuff. I was the only one to watch it. Other guys were away or couldn't watch it for whichever reason. So I'm doing this on my own. Quite interesting. Turned out to be two very interesting games. So at the same time, they were shown at the same time, and I had to flick around a little bit in between the channels and talk about Ireland, Fiji first. Yes, and Fiji's really looking good for me under Vern Cotter, who was obviously very successful with Scotland, and they started very well. They were 7-0 ahead for quite some time, and Ireland look a little bit rattled. I don't know if it was a bit of a hangover from a huge game last week, or they played a few of their second stringers, you could say. Carberry started at fly half, and a few other guys that they brought in, some new locks, and it just looked as if they struggled to get going. But Fiji's always going to look amazing. We made the comment that they have such physique. They're such big guys that they from prop to fullback, they're all big men, and they all have very, very good pace and very good skills that they bring through from the sevens, which is obviously their national sport, if I have that correct. And they one-on-one, they can always break tackles. They break a lot of tackles, and they can score tries from nowhere, as we saw in 2007 when the Springboks almost lost to them in the World Cup. So it was very, very interesting game to watch. But Ireland stuck to what they know, and they showed their class by just keeping calm and building the phases, and eventually by just being correct and accurate and being so well drilled, they managed to score tries, and they managed to change the game. And a lot of the Fijian tackles were borderline, and they eventually got a red card for a high hit, sort of blindsided the player. I think it was actually Carberry as well, the fly half. But full on, no wrap of the arms, on the face, on the jaw, and straight red. That made it very, very difficult. At one moment they were playing with 13 men, but they still showed a lot of heart. But Ireland, like I said, they were slightly off, but enjoyable game to watch because there were quite a few tries, and because it was kept fairly close. Ireland didn't just manage to pass the ball through their hands and score tries. I think Fiji are on the right track, and if they manage to work on their set phase and to just keep the tackles lower, they can become a real threat, and they can upset some big names in the World Cup. But Ireland started putting the hammer down, and after 61 minutes, Mac Hansen scored a try, and it was 28-10, and that was sort of the moment where the game changed. But then Fiji scored another try, and the final score in the end was 35-17. Maybe Ireland would be a little bit worried because of a lack of depth, but this was also a very good chance for some of the fringe players to show what they can do. As we saw in midweek with the SAA team against Munster, it's very difficult to put new players into a system and expect results, where the SAA team really struggled and Munster played extremely well and won the game convincingly 28-14 in the end. So this would have been a good run out for some of the guys to work on that depth with the World Cup coming, in case there is an injury and someone else has to step in. Everyone's talking about refereeing decisions and stuff, and I just have a viewpoint about that because of what Nick Mallett said in the week. He said something very interesting, that maybe the TMO should make decisions on his own. Because I've often sat in the stadium and I look at the big screen and I can't see what's going on there from sometimes I've been quite close to the screen and you can't really see what's going on. And we expect these refs to stand there and try and figure out what's going on in the big screen. And for me, there was one call where the Irish fullback crawled, where both his knees touched the ground, and Mathieu Ragnall actually said that was fine. But so as a neutral, as watching this game as a neutral, I just thought that was a strange decision, and that the TMO should have stepped in, should have been braver and maybe have made a different call, because for me that was a crawl. And it was interesting that both the commentators, whom I assume are both Irish, they giggled about it, and they said according to them the player crawled, especially the female commentator. She mentioned that for her that was definitely a crawl. He had control of the ball and pushed off both his knees, the fullback. And these are things that should be called correctly. Time should be taken. A person without the stadium crowd, without that influence, should look at a screen and make the right call for me. Luckily, it didn't influence the game. Ireland played well enough that they, in the end, won easily. And then, a very, very interesting game, Italy versus Australia. Such an ebb and flow in the game. Like I said, I had to flick in between the channels, and every time I looked, there was another try. Even though Italy missed a few kicks, they still managed to keep themselves in the game. And every time Australia scored, Italy scored as well. And they fought for every ball, and they showed so much heart. And this as well, I think, is very good for World Rugby. Not good for Australia, but we want to see competition, and we want to see unpredictability, because that's what makes sport amazing, is upset wins. Sorry, can I have a sip of my beer? And Italy won some crucial turnovers. Like I said, scored tries every time it looked as if Australia was going to run away with the game. They scored some tries. And beautiful hands for the try by the Italian fullback. Beautiful short passes, very accurate passes. They look very, very well drilled, very well coached. And they could upset a few people. They've already upset Australia now. And then you've got to feel sorry for the replacement fly half. He came on, and one of the first things he had to do, the Australian fly half Donaldson, was to kick the conversion to win the game for Australia, and he missed it. Yes, and the Italians came out running, and they were so happy. I think it's only the second time they've beaten Australia, but I speak under correction. But in the modern era, I haven't seen them beat Australia. So, absolutely fantastic game. 28-27, 1 point win by Italy, and a great advert for rugby. Some beautiful running rugby. Great try by the Italian fullback. Some very good tries, and very, very exciting match. 2 great games. Really thoroughly enjoyed the weekend's rugby. Those first 2, for us, it was in the afternoon. A rainy weekend. The sun's just coming out now. But yeah, really enjoyed the rugby. We'll talk about the Springboks a little bit later or in another video. Enjoy the rugby. Great weekend. Cheers.